Broadcasting.
Blog Talk USA. Are you tired of waiting for change?
1012, and it gives me 1,250 feet. Exit.
Bound the arrival of the flight from Los Angeles and Chicago.
Explosion.
And welcome one and all to this Wednesday, April 20th edition of T&Z Talk. And in honor of 420, on 420, we will be doing nothing differently, but I just had to not pass up the opportunity to say that. I am Tony Trupiano, the T in T&Z. I'm sorry, you interrupted me for what reason?
Go ahead.
No, really, Richard Zombeck. Why don't we just turn the show over to you since you're so anxious to start it for us?
Well, I was just asking if you were lighting up a big spliff.
No. In fact, I'm drinking a hot chocolate and have a glass of ice water. So the answer is no. Anyway, let's just say good morning to Richard Zombeck, the Z in T&Z. And Z, it was an interesting night for Republicans and Democrats alike. And as we take a look at the results, and yes, the conspiracy theorists are already crawling all over my freaking body. The reality is Hillary Clinton got almost 60% of the vote, Donald Trump just over 60% of the vote. And in fact, Donald Trump was able to garner 89 of the 95 delegates in New York State, which sucks if you're Ted Cruz.
I think a lot of things suck if you're Ted Cruz. I think just being Ted Cruz would suck.
Well, yeah. And in fact, he made a promise yesterday that he would not ban sexual devices, electronic sexual devices, if elected president. And I know why. Because he uses a pocket vagina as often as he possibly can.
Or a vibrating butt plug or something.
Or something.
Something.
Yes, something. So let me ask you, we'll start on the Democratic side.
Well, wait a minute.
The New York
Before we go into Ted Cruz, did you happen to see the email that he sent out that Elizabeth Warren just blasted him for?
No.
Would you like me to tell
I wasn't necessarily going. Well, yeah, but I wasn't necessarily going to Ted Cruz. But yeah, anything that makes.
No, we were talking about Ted Cruz. Well, that's all right. We mentioned him. We weren't talking about him. But go ahead. Oh, now who's splitting hairs? So anyway. So anyway, he sent this email out to his supporters, his followers, his minions, that starts with, and I quote, "You see, running for president of the United States is a significant sacrifice. Only by the grace of God and with unwavering help from my wonderful supporters like you have we reached this point, on the verge of capturing the Republican nomination." And then he goes into what makes it so hard. The constant attacks never stop. From the liberal media, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Time with family is non-existent. This is my favorite one. Health and sleep are limited. Fighting morning and night for the future of our country ensures long nights and early mornings resulting in little to no sleep. And that personal time is no longer possible. Well, big surprise. Elizabeth Warren took to Twitter and said things like, "Are you kidding me? We're supposed to pity you because trying to be leader of the free world is hard? 2 words. Boo-hoo." And then maybe you should spend less time complaining about your significant sacrifices and more time doing something about others' personal sacrifice. And then she went in to talk about working moms, people who are working 2 jobs, people who can't make ends meet because of the minimum wage that he's against, And on her Facebook page, she ends it with, Senator Cruz, you should choose to run for president. For president, working people don't get a choice. Maybe you should spend less time complaining about your significant sacrifices and more time trying to do something about theirs. It was beautiful. It was Warren-esque.
It is beautiful.
Yes.
And it's true. And by the way, if Ted Cruz were doing his job in the Senate, he would still have these issues, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he would if he were doing his job properly, which,
well,
of course...
properly being the operative word.
Yes. And we'll come back to Ted Cruz, I assure you, before this is all said and done. But the New York primaries were yesterday, and I'm going to be honest with you, because I always am. I did not watch the returns. I watched the first 10 minutes, and that was it. Because I was pretty sure what the result would be, and I wasn't wrong, and frankly, I honor my sleep more than I honor presidential politics at this point in my life. But we'll save that conversation for another time. You know, with that said, Hillary Clinton ends up with 57.95% of the vote. Bernie Sanders with 42.05% of the vote. And again, I told you the conspiracy theorists are out already saying that Bernie won all of these counties and so on and so forth. Yes, he did. But when you factor in something called the actual vote, Hillary shellacked the hell out of that dude. He didn't hold a snowball's chance in hell, climate change or not, of coming close to winning the state of New York. So people can split hairs, borrowing your phrase, all they want. In the popular vote category, which, by the way, is the one that counts, and Bernie still did get 106 delegates out of this, Hillary beat the living tar out of Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, well, that was not unexpected.
No, it was not unexpected, but it, listen, there were some that were thinking it was going to be in single digits. It wasn't. There were some that were actually suggesting that Bernie might pull off an upset. Didn't come close to that. I could go on. I mean, there are a lot of different categories I could go on and on and on about. I'm not going to do it because God forbid the Bernie bros get pissed off at me yet again. But I was telling you before the show, I can post something, and I know I continue to bitch about this, but I can post something that has absolutely nothing to do with Hillary or Bernie, and somebody will respond with an anti-Hillary, pro-Bernie post. Now, how does that happen, Z?
Well, same thing happens on Twitter. I mean, everywhere. Same thing happens.
Well, it happens to me on Twitter, too. I'm not saying it's just Facebook. It happens anytime I utter the word Bernie Sanders. Doesn't matter what the reference is. Right away, people are anti-Hillary and pro-Bernie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, And the thing is, too, is I've started seeing that they're almost as bad as teabaggers, right? I mean, there's absolutely no respect for reality or facts. I mean, it's just not. If you want to defend your candidate, then defend them against the actual facts, right? If you don't care that they're doing this, if you don't care that this actually happened, then don't say it never happened and it's a conspiracy and you're just being mean. It's like, this really happened. And that's where I have a problem, is where people will just defend. It's like, warring tribes and sports teams. It's not a president. You have to be able to say, I am willing to vote for this person despite the fact that they blank, and let it go at that. But denying that the candidate that you like actually did or didn't do something doesn't really help the cause.
Well, let's we spend a lot of time talking about Republicans, and we have got plenty of time to get to them a little later on in the hour. Let's talk about the reality in our opinions, because I promised in our promo for today's show that we would break this down. I was surprised that Bernie didn't do better, being that he drew such amazing crowds. You'll remember we asked the question either Monday or late last week, will Bernie be able to turn crowds into votes? We have the answer to that now. The answer is no, and in fact, he gave a couple rallies where the media said that these were record-sized crowds. So where do you think the disconnect is here before we look at the future contests coming up?
Well, there are a few things that I can think of. Is one, okay, they turn out, but they don't vote. And two, maybe those 27,000 people that showed up are the only ones that are voting for him. Rather than representing,
a thought, isn't there?
Rather than representing a percentage of the people that, I mean, I don't know, Tony. I mean, there was a lot of.
I don't know either.
There was also a lot of. I'm not going to say questionable, but there was this. It's a closed primary. People weren't registered correctly. Whatever. And that's turning into a whole conspiracy theory too. So.
Yes, but isn't that more of an excuse, Z, than it is a reality?
Because
it was they knew it was a closed primary back in October of last year.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. So, whether or not we should get rid of closed primaries is another story. And that's what democracy is for, and that's why we vote, and that's why we get things done, and that's why we contact our elected officials, and that's why we pay attention to the friggin' rules.
Well, in Michigan, we just went to a closed primary system. The legislature took care of that right before the primary here in the state of Michigan, which Bernie Sanders surprisingly won. But our Republican-controlled legislature voted to make it a closed primary system. So be it. It is what it is. I keep on going back to this. I did a local radio interview on Monday afternoon, and, somebody had called the show and said, well, the system's rigged, gerrymandering, all the excuses. I don't need to go through them all. And I said, okay, if I bought that, and I don't, but if I did buy that argument, there is a solution to the problem. It's called getting out the vote. And if more Democrats show up than Republicans and the Democrats actually vote Democrat, guess what? Democrats win, and then gerrymandering doesn't matter then, does it?
Right, and this whole thing about counties too. The New York Times has a map up of how every precinct voted.
Right,
Hillary's blue, Bernie Sanders is green. There's a lot of blue on this map. Let's
go with another theory. Let me throw another theory out to you that Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. And the people that, and actually, I think I suggested this on Monday as well, that some pundits are actually saying that, one of the problems Bernie's having is that as the many years he's been an independent, he is drawing independents to this campaign and to this race. That in and of itself is not bad, but in a state like New York where independents couldn't vote, well, that could be a problem. But let's take it a step further and say that perhaps some Democrats aren't voting for Bernie Sanders because, frankly, they don't see him as a Democrat.
Correct.
Your thoughts?
I agree.
Gee, you're verbose this morning.
Well, I mean, like you, I watched about 10 minutes of this. I mean, to be honest with you, it's this, Tony, it's the same thing every day. It's the exact same thing every day. Trump said something idiotic. Cruz is a moron. Bernie Sanders is turning out record numbers. Democrats aren't coming to vote. They're voting for Hillary. here we go. And I mean, I thought, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I thought it was funny, is that if we had Kasich and Hillary Clinton running, we would essentially have two moderate Republicans running for president.
Well, the one thing that Bernie has successfully done is drag Hillary, even if it's kicking and fighting, to the left. And thank God he's done that, because he's going to make her, and he has. He's made her make promises that she wouldn't have made any other way.
Well, and that she doesn't have to keep.
That's a good thing. Well, and none of them have to keep. Even Bernie doesn't have to keep his promises, because chances are, if Bernie were to be elected, he's not going to have a majority in the House and the Senate unless something really good happens, like Donald Trump is the nominee and he makes a complete kerfuffle of himself, which is, of course, very possible. But with all that said, let's look ahead to the upcoming primaries, certainly Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Rhode Island, Delaware, which Bernie doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell in winning. I don't think he's going to win Pennsylvania. California is in the balance, but I don't see him winning that. What I'm saying is Hillary looks to have maybe not an easy journey to the nomination, and may even take up until June 7th with the California primary, but she is certainly in command even without the superdelegates. There was a lot made yesterday, and maybe much too much made yesterday, of the fact that Bernie Sanders decided to fly home to Vermont without the media outreach that surrounds every candidate. In fact, pushed them away from his journey home, and maybe he just wanted a night off, which is fine with me. But, of course, the pundits are out this morning wondering what that means. And certainly the common consensus is that he's just reassessing everything before he moves forward. Jeff Weaver, the campaign manager for Bernie Sanders, continues to believe that they have a pretty direct path to the nomination and they've got a way to do it. But when you do look at the delegate count, and you do look at the superdelegates, of which Bernie Sanders only has 31 to Hillary Clinton's 489, and even if you were able to get half of those to come over to your side at this point, and there are a lot of people that are uncommitted yet, I get that, Bernie Sanders doesn't have a way to win this at this point.
Right, but I mean, doesn't his team have to believe that he's got a way to win?
They have to say it. They don't have to believe it.
Don't they
this
have
is
to?
Politics,
my friend. Don't they have to at least give the appearance of thinking that they're going to win?
Well, that's what I just said.
Right. I mean, listen. You know this. I'm a big Bernie supporter.
Are you really? I would have never guessed that.
I am. And I'm
really,
I'm not, yes.
I would never know that by the way you post and what you post, and that you've never posted anything that's even kind of Hillary positive, and then you tell me that there's nothing out there, which is a lie. But go ahead. What were you going to say about?
Hold on. You texted me over the weekend and said, not that I'm accusing you of anything, but you don't seem to be posting a lot of positive things about Hillary Clinton. And I said, well, if I could find
when
some.
was the last time you posted something positive about Hillary Clinton? You said there isn't anything.
Well, that's not exactly what I said. I said if I could find some, I would post it. And then
I'll find the freaking text. You keep talking there, Pally Pal.
I'm looking for it too, there, my brother. I said oh, you're right. I've never seen anything positive about her. That's right. That's exactly what I said. Quote, yeah. I've never seen anything positive about her. Okay.
Feel free to do so. We are a team, after all, is what you wrote. And, of course, I have posted some positive stuff. She's not a monster. You and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago, and I said to you, and your answer was legit, by the way. I said to you, what happens if Hillary's the nominee? And you said, well, of course I would support her. I absolutely would. It's not that I don't like her. And you even said that day, She's more experienced. She, at this point, has the better resume. Whatever you said. It was not anti-Hillary in any stretch of the imagination, so I want to be upfront about that.
Yeah, I don't particularly care for her.
Well, and you don't have to, but you do have to vote for her because it's either her or Donald Trump.
Well,
by the way, we'll get to the Republican side in a moment.
I've actually been thinking about voting for Donald Trump to just see this whole place burn down.
Stop.
Just let it go. Let it hit rock bottom. Let it hit. Hey, anything that has the first thing is admitting you have a problem, and then hitting rock bottom. And maybe this country needs to hit rock bottom before. I posted something.
I'm sorry, George W. wasn't rock bottom.
Well, it was pretty close. We haven't quite rebuilt. I posted something the other day on Twitter and Facebook, and you can just imagine how many times this got retweeted and shared and liked. I said it's only a matter of time before the U.S. is invaded and we have democracy forced on us.
Well, in the Washington Post, we'll come back. We'll come back to Donald Trump here in a moment. Anyway, looking forward, not that Bernie can't win a primary or two here and there along the way, but I don't see that he has any realistic path to the nomination, which brings up the next question. And I get a little disturbed by this, the anti-Hillary crowd or the Bernie bro crowd that says, I'll never vote for Hillary Clinton. So you would rather Donald Trump be elected than vote for Hillary Clinton. Tell me where the logic is in that. I know you don't agree with it, but where's the logic in that?
Well, there's really no logic to it. It's, I'm going to take my ball and go home. That's what it is. I didn't get my way. I'm going to take my ball and go home, and you can all go F yourselves.
Well, and then there's, of course, the talk that on the Bernie bro side of the world that they will, spark their own third party enthusiasm. Two names I want to mention, Ralph Nader and Ross Perot. And if you need an explanation on either one of those, you really haven't been paying attention to politics over the years. I'll just leave it there. Well, again, congratulations this morning to Hillary Clinton on a decisive 15% victory or 15-point victory over Bernie Sanders. Now let's move to the red side of the aisle. Should we do some audio first, or should we just go to the red side of the aisle?
Well, and congratulations to Donald Trump.
Yeah, whatever.
Come on. I mean, we need to be fair.
Do we?
No.
I was going to say, I don't think...
Screw Trump.
I think if we were in a press conference and we were identified as liberal journalists, he wouldn't be fair to us.
That's
Except
true.
maybe to tell us how much we suck.
Actually, he'd probably have us thrown out. Speaking of F Trump, I want to add something to this part of the conversation. There was, and I have this up. I'll have this up on Liberals United later today with the video, the full video. Two rappers, LA rappers, YG and Nipsey Hussle, did a rap video in the LA streets called F Donald Trump. It's not actually F Donald Trump. It's F ... Donald Trump. And they were filming the rap video, and the LA police actually thought a real riot was going on. And so they shut down the entire production. So in the video, there are actually police helicopters and police cars that they were able to get in there and film. But the video will be up on Liberals Unite at some point today. And the name of the song is, of course, NSFW, Not Safe for Work, called FTD. F Donald Trump. And again, it's two LA rappers, YG and Nipsey Hussle.
Which, of course, is a play on Nipsey Russell, I would think.
Probably. And got broken up because the cops thought it was a real riot. I mean, of course, it was those, those black people there were more than 3 of them in the street. So it must be, it's not a movement, it's a riot.
Geez, my typing sucks. I'm looking at our audio list, and I'll tell you how awake I was this morning doing this. The Sanders campaign, let's do a piece of audio. The Sanders campaign's campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, was on MSNBC last night and very staunchly supported the fact that, he thought they had a path to victory come the convention this summer. And this is what Jeff Weaver had to say on MSNBC.
Steve Kornacki is at the board with a special guest, someone whose name we just heard in Andrea Mitchell's reporting. Steve?
That's right, Brian. We're with Jeff Weaver. This is the campaign manager for Bernie Sanders. So we've been talking all night, Jeff. We've been talking all night about the delegate math for Bernie Sanders. And so there's the super delegates. Let's forget those. Let's talk about the pledged delegates. First, what you see here, these are the states to come and the delegates left. But let's set this up for people back home. So based on our NBC math we had coming into tonight, now, the state of Washington, this gets complicated. We haven't added the delegates. You guys won big there. Yeah. Let's estimate you guys are still going to pick up 35 there. We think you came into tonight down about 210 in the pledged delegate category. Now, you're going to lose New York tonight. We're not sure what the exact breakdown is going to be. Tell me if this is fair. Why don't we estimate for the purposes of this conversation, you guys are going to lose 25 delegates net tonight. Okay. So 235. You need to make up 235 pledged delegates in these states with this number of delegates. And just take me through what you see here that tells you can erase that.
Well, I mean, I think if you look, obviously the big state here is California. A big win there, get you a lot of delegates. Oregon is a state that should be very, very good for the senator. These states, we've won all the states around these states, so these states would seem to be prime territory for the senator. The senator's been increasingly doing well with Latino voters in states across the country. So New Mexico is certainly in play. Indiana, a state that he's going to do well in. It's possible to run all of these states. New Jersey has a lot of delegates. There's just a lot. If you looked at a lot of delegates on the board, 235. That's only half the number in one state.
Can I ask this?
Sure.
People look at the demographics of what happened here in New York tonight. This looks like a double-digit loss. You look at the demographics of New Jersey. Very similar. And people would say, if you can't come into New York and keep it in single digits there, how do you turn around and do it in New Jersey? Or, for that matter, Maryland. Maryland has the largest African-American population of any state in the North. This is a campaign that struggled to break 30% with African-Americans.
Well, for one thing, look, the secretary and her people should be congratulated for their victory tonight. No doubt about it. But she had a special relationship with the people of New York. She was elected here twice as a U.S. senator. We always knew this was going to be a very tough state, closed primary. So the fact that, she did very, very well in New York doesn't necessarily mean the same thing in these other states. The rest of the New England states we should do well in. Again, New Jersey is a state where I think we are doing very well right now.
When you look a week from tonight, we're going to be talking about Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island. With the loss in New York, with the 235 or so pledged delegate gap, is it fair to say you are in must-win territory in all of these states?
No, I don't think you have to win all of them. But look, I think you have to win. Certainly Pennsylvania becomes a very, very important state in this process. We're doing very well there. Certainly our internal polls and some of the are much better than some of the public polls that are out there. So we should do very, very well there. When we get past the 26th, you go into May, you got one state a week. I think we have the possibility of winning every single state in that month, every single week in that month. And then again, on June 5th or June 7th is that's the big day. Here
you go, Tony.
Well, and I got to tell you, there have been a lot of people, if you go to where I grabbed that audio, which was MSNBC, a lot of people were saying, hey, Jeff Weaver's living in a dream world, and that was one of the nicer comments. The reality is, he talked about Oregon and some of those, the surrounding states. There are like 60 delegates there. Go ahead and win those 3 states. Those 60 delegates just won't matter. in the bigger picture, especially when you talk about Pennsylvania, where Hillary's leading in double digits right now. Again, Delaware, which Bernie Sanders won't win, Maryland, which Bernie Sanders won't win. And in fact, there is a shot, even if you don't factor in superdelegates, that Hillary will have the nomination wrapped up before California. I mean, there's a real shot that could happen. The question is, beyond all that, beyond can he win, will he be the nominee, won't he be the nominee, will there be an open convention, won't there be an open convention? Let's just go with an assumption and say Hillary gets the nomination. What happens to Bernie and what happens to Bernie's supporters? Don't know that I know the answer to that one.
That's the whole thing that's up for grabs, right? I mean, judging by what I'm seeing on social media, it's write-ins, it's not voting, it's Bernie or bust. But that's that remains to be seen. I mean, the same people were saying,
but doesn't it become?
The same people were saying that about Hillary Clinton when she was running against Obama. It's Hillary or nothing. But reality set in at some point, and Obama was elected president.
Well, but
do
Hillary
we need to remind
also
Republicans that it was by a fairly large margin?
Yeah, but let's remind the audience that Hillary became a major surrogate for President Obama. Then candidate Obama really did rally her troops behind Barack Obama. And, Bernie has yet to commit to doing that. And, in fact, his rhetoric has been very concerning to a lot of people. And I was talking to you before the show, and it's just been my experience, especially on the street as I talk to people, that they don't care that Hillary got $200,000 for a speech. They don't care about the stuff that Bernie has become a curmudgeon about. And in fact, you and I were talking as well before the show that Bernie's starting to turn off even some Bernie supporters with his posturing, with his finger pointing, with his accusations, that it's almost coming off as desperate.
Yeah. I mean,
here
I
he
see
goes
that.
again with the verboseness. You're saying way too much today.
Well,
this is radio, dude. You don't give one-word answers.
Look, I see that, and there's also the Clooney debacle with people standing outside throwing dollar. Now, here's the thing, right? Is they were throwing dollar bills at her motorcade. Now, reality says they were throwing dollar bills at her motorcade because she takes money for giving speeches and other things. The conspiracy is that, it goes back to the week before when someone called her a corporate whore or used the term corporate whore. And so, now they're throwing dollar bills at her because she's a prostitute, and it's completely, it's rude, and it's, that's Bernie's campaign, and it's disgusting, and no, they were throwing dollar bills at her because they think that she is paid by Wall Street. That's why.
See, Adam and that guy on the side of the road going, holla for a dollar, Hillary, holla for a dollar. But that's just me as I'm holding up my placard that says go to chickswithdicks.com. But that's just me. All right, let's go to the Republican side.
We'll be posting that picture on the website later today.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's go to the Republican side of the aisle, where it was really an amazing night for Donald Trump. John Kasich got 3 whole delegates, leaving Ted Cruz with, I believe, 2 delegates out of New York, that he got anything out of New York, except for maybe syphilis as a gift. But with that said, what does this say about... listen, I was going to say with all due respect to John Kasich, there really is no due respect to John Kasich, number one. Number 2, John Kasich is now less than 30 delegates behind. Well, that's not true. He's not. He's more than 30 delegates behind Ted Cruz. So I apologize. That's not true. But with all that said, not that Donald Trump wasn't expected to win huge, and he did. But Ted Cruz is, again, living in a fantasy world if he thinks that he's going to somehow secure the nomination before the convention. And if his plan Z is to rip off the nomination by going after the unbound delegates, that ain't going to work so well either. And we're going to get to Representative Peter King here in just a few minutes, because I think Representative King's sentiments pretty much wrap up how those inside the Beltway and those inside the party feel about Mr. Cruz.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's holding your nose, right? I'm going to hold my nose and do this. Or Lindsey Graham saying, well, he's the best out of 15. He was my 15th choice, or something like that. So
out of 17.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. By the way, sad news today. The world's oldest dog died at the age of 30.
I saw that.
Yeah. It's just sad. Maggie, the Kelpie, died at the age of 30, which, you know how much I am, tied to my dog, and he's my soulmate and all that good stuff. So that's that. Anyway, let's stick to, see how easy it is to transition away from Republican politics. Doesn't take much for me. With that said, Ted Cruz did actually worse than it was expected he would do. I'm sure John Kasich is going to take his message to the people of Pennsylvania that somehow coming in second place with 25% of the vote is some kind of mandate for him to serve. But the reality is, when you look at that map county by county, well, Donald Trump owns the state of New York.
Completely. Yes.
There you go. There's that one-word answer I was looking for.
Well, I was trying. You said that I saw that the world's oldest dog died, and you said Kelpie, and I was trying to figure out what a Kelpie was. But I will tell you that Kelpies did not make the top 10 list of dog breeds with the least health problems. The Australian cattle dog did, which can live to be 29 years old. So that's a pretty close second. But Kelpies didn't make the list.
He has more to say about breeds of. He doesn't even own a dog. More to say about breeds of dog than he does about Republican. Not that I don't blame you. Not that I don't blame you. So here's the breakdown. Donald Trump, 60.5% of the vote. John Kasich, 25.5% of the vote. Ted Cruz, 14.45% of the vote. And others, 0% of the vote. And the reality is that Donald Trump did what Donald Trump was expected to do. Any momentum that was supposedly in Ted Cruz's corner, goodbye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. And in fact, Ted Cruz has pretty much given up on Pennsylvania. God, I just wish Ted Cruz would give up on this campaign. It'd be interesting to see if Ted Cruz weren't there, how John Kasich and Donald Trump would do against each other.
I have a question for you.
Yes, I'll give you a one-word answer.
Would you like me to put it in multiple choice A, B, and C? I mean, did Trump? Now, here's the thing: did Trump win because he's Trump? Did Trump win because New York voters are loyal? Or did Trump win because people couldn't bear to vote for Cruz? And also that part of why that reason was that they couldn't vote for Cruz was because he had that whole thing with the New York values, right? Now, he tried to explain that away, but we all know what he meant by New York values. I mean, let's not be coy here. Everyone knew what he meant when he said anything about New York values. And also everyone knew what he meant when he voted against health care for the 9/11 responders. Everyone knew that.
You all be hoes and pimps. Right. Well, listen, John Kasich would have been an answer to one of your questions. John Kasich would have been the alternative, which means John Kasich would have got more than 25% of the vote. So it wasn't just an anti-Cruz vote, because they did have the option of voting for John Kasich. I got to tell you, I saw the funniest piece yesterday, and I don't remember which network it was on, but it was absolutely hilarious. And the bottom line it said that there were some precincts in New York that didn't even have Republican ballots available because Republicans had never voted at those precincts. So when there are some counties in New York State that just are 97% Democrat, and Republicans just don't show up. So Republicans showed up to vote yesterday, and they just had them write their preference on a piece of paper, and I think there were all of 10 of them. But I thought that was kind of funny, number one. Number two, to answer your question, I think they voted for Trump because he was Trump. If it was an anti-Cruz vote, I think Kasich would have received a more lion's share of the vote than he did. And I think there's some logic to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I subscribe to the theory that, we shouldn't be so worried about Trump doing as well as he did. We should be more worried about the people that are voting for him to be doing as well as he is.
Yeah. So we mentioned Representative Peter King. And Representative King was on Morning Joe morning before, or maybe it was yesterday morning, and was asked about supporting Ted Cruz. Now, by the way, Ted Cruz has had a handful, and I mean less than 5 fingers, 4 fingers and a thumb's worth of endorsements out of Congress. Peter King would not be one of them. But when asked, I'll just let this speak for itself. When asked the question, this is what Representative King had to say. Who, by the way, is a Republican.
So why don't we bring in, just announced this morning, right? Nassau County's chairman for Ted Cruz for president.
Yes.
Our good friend Peter King.
Loves him.
Incredible. Yeah, Republican Congressman Peter King of New York.
He loves him.
Congressman, congratulations on your new chairman position. Here's actually a quote from Congressman King about Ted Cruz. Any New Yorker who even thinks of voting for Ted Cruz should have their head examined.
Okay, well, this is a little turnabout.
So
wait a minute.
What happens tonight on the Republican side? How big does Donald Trump win?
By the way? Well, first of all, in case anybody gets confused, I am not endorsing Ted Cruz. I hate Ted Cruz, and I think I'll take Cyanide if he ever got the nomination. Now, having said that, I think you're going to see Donald Trump scoring a big victory tonight. I've not endorsed Donald Trump. In fact, I actually voted by absentee ballot for John Kasich. I'm not endorsing John, but I voted for him to really send a message. But I think Trump is going to win big. I know in Long Island, you go through every part of Long Island I've been to, people come up to you, they're talking about Donald Trump. Joe, to go back to what you said about Wisconsin, I did notice after Wisconsin, for a day or so, people were wondering what had happened to Donald Trump. Then he held this massive rally on Long Island in Bethpage, right, about 10 minutes from my house. And that really, even psychologically, turned it around again.
Wait, hold on a second. You're 10 minutes from Bethpage?
Yeah.
Can you get me on the golf course without waiting in line?
He can't get in there.
I don't want to wait in line at 2 in the morning.
Joe, you're such an important guy. You get in on your own, but I will definitely talk to all the important people and tell them that Morning Joe himself is on the way.
Joe.
All right, and it gets silly from there. You know, Z, I would take Cyanide if Ted Cruz were to become the nominee. That says a whole lot. Donald Trump actually had a little bit to say about Whining Ted yesterday. And before we get to that piece of audio, you know, Donald Trump has surrounded himself with a new strategy team, and he has radically changed his message over the last couple of weeks, which is something I'm sure you have noticed. He's not nearly as bombastic. He's not saying headline news stuff. He hasn't appeared on the Sunday morning shows in 2 weeks. I think that that's a smart strategy for him. I think it is going to work in his favor eventually. He did promise he would become more presidential as we got closer to the end of the primary season, and maybe this is his way of manifesting that. But that doesn't mean he didn't have a shot or two to make at Ted Cruz last night, of course, at Trump Tower. And by the way, in case you missed this, I don't know if you did or not, Donald Trump had the press in one area of Trump Tower and the revelers in another area of Trump Tower, and did not allow them necessarily to commingle.
Yeah, it wasn't. They weren't just cordoned off, were they? Weren't they in separate, like completely different places?
Yeah, the revelers were in the ballroom, and the press was in the lobby.
Yeah.
And they have separate entrances. There was no way they were going to be able to interact. We'll let people read into that whatever they want. Anyway, Donald Trump says that Cruz is just about mathematically eliminated. Not very long piece of audio, but this is what Donald Trump had to say.
That know me the best, the people of New York, when they give us this kind of a vote. And it's just incredible. And I guess we're close to 70%, and we're going to end at a very high level. This has been an amazing week. All over New York State. We went to Syracuse. We went to Albany. 20,000 people. I mean, on average, we'd have 15 to 20,000 people. We went to Rochester. We went to Bethpage. We went all over. And you know what? The people of this country and the people of this state truly are great and amazing people. We are going to be so strong again. We are going to be really, I mean, legitimately so great again, and I just can't wait. So, we don't have much of a race anymore, based on what I'm seeing on television. Senator Cruz is just about mathematically eliminated. And we've won another state. As you know, we have won millions of more votes than Senator Cruz. Millions and millions of more votes than Governor Kasich. We've won, and now, especially after tonight, close to 300 delegates more than Senator Cruz. We're really, really rocking. We expect we're going to have an amazing number of weeks because these are places, and they're in trouble. They're in big trouble.
Well, he definitely got some coaching.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm not so sure that that's a bad thing, especially in light of what he had to say. And there's some, in fact, it was all factual, which is really unusual because that's just not like him. That's not like him to not lie on average of every 5 minutes. I mean, he starts off by saying, it looks like we've got 70% of the vote, but he also qualifies that, by basically saying now, but that, of course, changed by the end of the night. But 60+% of the vote is still something to be pretty damn proud of. There's no question, Zombek, that is true. And so we wonder now, again, we asked the question we asked about Hillary and Bernie, what happens with Donald and Ted moving forward? Donald still has the ability to garner the 1,237 delegates before the end of the primary season. And in fact, not unlike Hillary, it could take up to California for that to happen. I don't think Ted Cruz is going to walk away because he's been working the unbound delegates as if they're voters. But I read an interesting article late last night that basically said that Ted Cruz's system to try to win the nomination is really angering rank-and-file Republicans that believe their vote doesn't matter to him. And that is actually costing him votes. And I can see where that would be true, Z.
Yeah, well, and I just want to back up a minute, because what I found interesting was one, like you said, he was very pretty much cordial, and that statement that you made that he lies every 5 minutes is not just hyperbole. That's a proven fact. That he was lying almost every 5 minutes. But what I found interesting about his speech was that he referred to Ted Cruz as Senator Cruz and Senator Ted Cruz. He was very careful about that, and that's why I said he must have gotten some coaching, because he wasn't calling him Lion Ted. He was referring to him by his title, which is a really that's a big shift for the Trump campaign to be doing that. And I'm wondering if he's going to start referring to Hillary Clinton as Madam Secretary or Secretary Clinton or whatever, and not in the way that people used to refer to Obama as Barack Hussein Obama, right? But whether or not he's really going to try to make an effort here, and whether or not it's going to sway people who otherwise wouldn't have voted for him. I mean, he's still like 75% disapproval rating among women right now.
Let me just for a second, because you bring it up. What are the odds that a guy with the name of Barack Hussein Obama would be elected president of the United States, especially as a black man? What are the odds of that happening? Seriously, think about that, especially when we weren't even, we were like 10 years out of 9/11. Think about that. A guy by the name of Barack Hussein Obama, a black man, gets elected president of the United States of America. I mean, you stop and think about the fantastical nature of that. Yeah. And it's pretty damned impressive what the American people did, in spite of what Mitch McConnell did. But yeah, I mean, just really impressive. Well, it looks like we're going to have a nominee by the name of Donald Trump on the Republican side, a nominee by the name of Hillary Clinton on the Democratic side. I said it looks like it. I didn't guarantee it. So those of you that want to send me emails and tell me what a corporate whore I am, save it, please, because I don't really freaking care. Number one. Number two, when we take a look at, and I have to bring this up, in the Washington Post today, you had actually posted a piece a couple days ago where Donald Trump referred to 9/11 as 7/11. Yeah. And E.J. Dionne has written a piece in the Washington Post today that says, we finally found out how Donald Trump is going to make America great again. And he refers to naming rights. And so one of them would be, 9/11 gets changed to 7/11. And there are a whole list of them, which are really funny. And in fact, the dialogue, the make-believe dialogue that he writes about, and it might have been Dana Milbank, but the make-believe dialogue that he writes about is that the CEO of 7-Eleven calls Donald Trump and says, hey, can you work us into a national dialogue? Right. And, and so it's just a very funny piece, and how we would turn some of the more memorable historical happenings in this country into corporate naming rights, which is one of the ways to make America great again. So I'll let you read that and discover that on your own, folks.
Well, I do. And also Salma Hayek, and I heretofore did not know that Salma Hayek was dyslexic, but she tweeted, I'm a dyslexic Mexican and English is my second language. However, even I do not confuse 7-Eleven with 9/11.
I would make out with her.
Oh. And she's 49 years old. And fondle her butt at the same time. And she's 49 years old, Tony.
I don't care how old she is.
She's gorgeous.
I would make out with her. I absolutely would.
Well, that's
listen,
good to know.
We've got 4 minutes left, and the dog is barking, so we're live. That's all right. He hears something.
There's Vinny.
Paul Ryan was on with Stephen Colbert. We'll save the Hillary one for Friday. But Paul Ryan was on with Stephen Colbert yesterday, and you and I actually had this conversation when Paul Ryan made his very statesman-like statement that he was not interested, would not accept the nomination of his party if it were offered. Well, Stephen Colbert, being Stephen Colbert, decided that on the Tonight Show last night, he would ask Paul Ryan that same question. And this was the exchange.
Here we go.
Yes or no, would you accept the nomination?
No, Stephen. I have said I do not want, nor would I accept the Republican nomination.
Got it. So you're considering the nomination?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I'll give you some time to mull this one over. How about now?
Still no.
So that's a maybe?
No, it's a no.
Like a no-no? Or one of those, no, I don't want to be Speaker of the House, but I'll accept it if you just give it to me no's?
It's a no-no.
And two no-nos make a yes?
You gotta love it. Went on to say, okay, so that's in English. What about in German? And Paul Ryan goes, 9. And it was a comedy bit for those that don't get that. And, listen, there are Donald Trump supporters that wouldn't get that. But it was a comedy bit. Not funny is that Paul Ryan has been Speaker now for 6 months and still does not have an agenda for Congress that he can call his own. He still has not been able to coalesce the conservative members of the party, and they have really moved no significant legislation. Although I will say, I read an article day before yesterday that they did name 35 post offices last week, and it took them 6 hours to do it.
That's terrific. Well, they're getting things done, Tony. They're cooking with gas.
Actually, there was somebody that had written an op-ed reaction to that story that said, yes, it took them 6 hours to do it. Yes, they named 35 new post offices, but they did it before they closed them. And anybody that knows anything about the woes of the post office has nothing to do with the business model, has everything to do with Congress putting onerous restrictions on them and the way they have to fund their retirement. And for those that think I'm joking, let me give you a small tidbit. If you work for the post office, just know that people that will not be hired for 20 years are guaranteed a retirement. You heard me right. People that won't be hired for 20 years. That means people that aren't yet born will be guaranteed a retirement. They're being forced to fund a retirement system for people that aren't born yet. And why? Because Congress mandated it. Right. And why? Because they're trying to privatize it.
Right. Also, real quick, because I know we're running low on time here, and maybe we should talk about this. We're off tomorrow, but we'll be back on Friday. And if you listen to us on the podcast, it really doesn't matter because you'll just listen to the next show. But anyway, what I did come across the other day is that the Conservative Action Project, CAP, which is a group of about 75 conservative leaders, sent McConnell and Paul Ryan a scathing letter, and we'll get to that on the next episode, maybe, or I'll put it up on the website. It is up on Facebook, basically saying, get your S together and do some work. We're sick of this. And their big fear is that, Obama's recess appointments. And they sent basically a 2-page letter to these two guys saying, what the hell are you doing? You morons, get it together and do some work. And these were some pretty prominent Republican leaders, like the former Attorney General for, Republican Jesus, Ronald Reagan. Edwin Meese is in that group. And among other very high-level, prominent, old guard Republicans, wrote a letter, and it was signed by about 75 of them from the
Republican Jesus.
Conservative Action
That's precious. We got to wrap it up, dude. Go ahead and do your thing.
Yep. If you want to find us on the interwebs, you can find us at www.tnztalk.com. There's a button up at the top that says support. Please go there. We can't do this without you. We need your support either through Patreon or any of the other mode of operandi that are listed on the website. And that's it. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and follow those links and listen to our archives.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back on Friday. In fact, we're investigating a podcast-only mode for this program, but we'll give you details as we have them. In the meantime, have a great Wednesday and a great Thursday. We'll be back on Friday. And as always, Zombek and I ask that you be well.
Oh, yeah. Can you feel it? Just over the credits, just riffing now. Words and chords. Not the poetry and the real thing, but not bad for an ad-lib. Not good, but... And it's not long enough, so just do a little bit more. And that's nearly done. That's the final credit there. That's the end.